right, episode 20, everyone. And yeah, I know I always say it, I'm massively excited, but this is, I couldn't be any more genuine with my excitement on this because I've actually brought my mentor onto the call. It's been a long time coming. It's definitely been an intention of mine to actually bring him on. The intro is going to be quite lengthy, so if you're bored of intros, then come off the video right now. But JD Daley is the man in front of me right here. So has been a mentor of mine for the last 3 years since I've been in this space. He's in fact the very reason I actually got into this space and trusted in his ability to help me navigate this. And obviously I'm still here right now. Just to give you context on JD's experience. So 18 years in sales, 40 million in revenue generated. You can't even humble brag that. That's just kind of, says what it says. And then in that time, as far as remote sales, it's been 4.5 years. I think you were actively selling and made not 1.7 million revenue generated, but 1.7 million in commissions made over 4.5 years. Absolutely game changing. And now is a career development mentor in the space. I think it's been about 5 years now, I believe. I think we're on the cusp of that. So yeah, and one of the most well-known people on, especially in the Facebook world, when it comes to how to navigate this space, career development. And JD's gone through all kinds of different scenarios, and obviously we're going to talk setting today, but more so on the career development side because that's where people get stuck. So yeah, that wasn't the most actually it wasn't as lengthy as I thought the intro would be. But is there anything you want me to add to that?
No, I think that's perfect, man. I really appreciate it.
Cool, good stuff. And yeah, we know you're kind of recovering at the moment. So if JD's not like as excitable as he usually is, he's going in stoic mode today. So I hope you guys enjoy that.
I'll get
Um,
into it.
All good. So yeah, let's talk about kind of like how it started. I know door to door, I believe, was the first experience, right? So
Yeah.
did you fall into it? Was it intentional? Like,
No,
obviously, what
no,
happened there?
not intentional at all. I started getting less and less shifts at a bar I was working at in Calgary, and I probably sent out like 150 to 200 applications to basically anything entry level, and I got this kind of direct sales, they called it. And they had all these pictures of people in suits on the website, but it didn't really say what it was. And I went for an interview, got called for a second interview. And on the second interview, they told me we were going to drive to the market. And so I'm thinking, for some reason in my mind, I'm thinking like New York
Yeah.
Stock Exchange, like
This is
we're gonna
this
go to a
reminds me exactly what happened to me when I started.
right.
Like, you just think
Yeah,
it's going to be all official and it's not. You're at someone's
that's it.
skanky door.
Right. And so this guy just drove me out to the middle of nowhere and said, "All right, we're here." And got out of his car and I follow him. I thought maybe he was going to his house to like pick up something.
Yeah.
And he just started knocking doors and that was it. And the first day was horrible. I'm like, basically can't wait to leave here. I thought, what a horrible day. This guy sucks. And then he's like, yeah, so that's about it. We made about $300 today. And I'm like, what? Like we had people telling us to go screw ourselves, people chasing us off the block. Like I thought we didn't do anything. We got a couple people to say yes, and he's like, "Yeah, that's $300." And I was like, "All right, if that's $300, I'm in." And I did that for 2 years, did really well with it, and then just decided to make a career shift and got the big promotion to cold calling out of the Yellow Pages book. For those that don't know, that was just
Huge
that was
promo.
lead
Worth
list.
celebrating that.
Yeah, so I did that for 2 years and then started to get into more account and territory management. Worked for a stint with Xerox and a couple other big companies. Did some stuff in the agency world in Toronto, animation, things like that, oil and gas, and then just walked away from career. Looked at kind of the online world and then stumbled into remote sales, kind of the same way I stumbled into door to door.
For sure. And like obviously see for a lot of people come into the remote sales world, I know for me there was a lot of support from somebody like yourself and there was some big companies out there. And obviously for you, it was there. I mean, there was maybe some odd companies like, for example, Sales Mentor, Traffic and Funnels. We've had a few of those guys on,
Right.
but you've come into it not really. Nobody's really been there providing the advice that you did. So, like, the question I've always wanted to know is how the hell did you manage to go through that swarm of just like figuring out the best ways of getting into offers, that top-down strategy? Like, how did that all even come about? Like those methods to help you navigate the best offers?
Yeah, there was probably two or three people in the space giving advice, and I followed it. One of my X factors has always been work ethic and just that obsessive quality. And so I worked it to a T. And luckily for me, I think early on it was like I remember seeing one of the gurus basically saying like, hey, if it's not working for you, you're not working hard enough. And at the time, I was probably doing like 11, 12-hour nights because I was working in Korea. And so I was keeping up with US hours, working 11, 12 hours. I knew that, hey, there's no way I could work harder. That can't be the factor. So
Mm.
it instantly broke the trust. And so a lot of people, it takes 3, 6, 12 months before they realize that what they've been being told is bullshit. I realized very quickly, and I didn't have any time to waste. I was going broke,
Mm.
working 50, 60 hours a week, making $1,100 a month. It's like, this isn't it. And so that forced me to look at, maybe these people either don't know what they're talking about, or they don't care, or what worked for them isn't personalized for me. And so I didn't know what would work, but I knew what wasn't working. And so I looked at all the things that I hated doing. And for me, it was about respect. And that's not a factor that most people think about, but I was tired of being kind of not respected. I wasn't hearing back. I was spending hours filling out applications and not even like a no thank you, not even feedback.
Mm.
And so I kind of took all those elements: job applications, cold templated outreach, lack of respect, kind of a dime a dozen for applicant mentality. And I just started to solve for X. And I like kind of playing hypothetical, or creating puzzles. And so the puzzle was, if I couldn't apply for jobs, if I couldn't use recruiter pipelines, if I couldn't use any of the elements that I'm used to using, how could I get a job? And that kind of led me to looking at, well, there's two things. One, business owners land clients without applications. And then what really led me, I had some experience in the freelance market, and the best freelancers I knew weren't applying for jobs. Yeah, there's the Upwork people, but like the top tier, they were marketing themselves and they were negotiating their terms and they were running more like an agency. And so that was kind of the tipping point for me of like, well, why, if Facebook ad specialists and email marketers and copywriters and all these other high level service providers aren't going through the same hoops we're going through, why couldn't I apply some of their model? And so that was the starting point. And, I figured it might give me a little bit of a bump, but like 2 weeks later, I had 8 interviews, 6 offers. I ended up taking one of those opportunities with one of the top companies in the space. And 4 months later, I'd made $120,000. So it gave me a big bump.
Yeah, just a bit, just a bit. And like obviously when it comes to doing things like that, I guess different style of thinking, sometimes you're kind of forced into those situations as well. Not that I'm suggesting that everybody should put themselves back against the wall, go to zero and then figure it out, obviously. But
Right.
as far as like, and it's that hypotheticals thinking that you mentioned,
Right.
right? And so like for those people out there, especially setters, I'm seeing a lot of it now where it's just like they're putting interested, or that when they're posting content, it's just like copying and pasting a quote. Like how to help setters be more intentional about their efforts when it comes to doing something different with finding better opportunities, I guess.
Yeah. And I think, speaking of where we are in common, and kind of both of our journeys, the turning point was switching from problem focused to solution focused. Right? Like when you started focusing, because there's a lot of uncertainty, and you play these what if scenarios, and you exert a lot of energy in what ifs. Right? The shift that I seen from you that changed the trajectory of your career and put you where you are now is, it wasn't a matter of like if, it was a matter of how. And so
Mm. Yeah.
the examples I'll use is kind of two examples that I think are important. One is fitness. Fitness is a great analogy if you're in sales to use often, because everybody just gets it. Right? It's not like, okay, what if I go to the gym every day, eat a balanced diet, am active? Like, what if it doesn't work? Very few people have uncertainty around like, hey, if I exercise more, if I move my body and I eat healthier, I will get some sort of progress. I don't know the exact date I'll have a six pack, but if I know that if I get on that course, I will win. The other aspect, I think, is under just, where is that certainty, right? Where can you find that certainty? And the example I'll use is a puzzle, right? So let's say you get one of those 500 piece puzzles, and you pour it out on the table. You're not sitting there for an hour being like, what if they put the wrong pieces in? You know, when you start, that is solvable. So your focus goes on to the solution. And what do? You start with the pieces that you know. You start with the corner pieces. You start one piece at a time, but you're not sitting there for hours and hours worrying about if the puzzle maker screwed you over. And so I like to think of things as a solvable puzzle. And in my life, I've realized that I've never been given a puzzle that's not solvable. Some have different difficulty levels, but I get the certainty in knowing I'm not going to be faced with a problem that isn't solvable. And so now it becomes a matter of, instead of if question mark shiver, when and how. And that's, I think, the difference maker is so many people are focused on their problem or what they're lacking instead of finding the model of, hey, this is a solvable puzzle. Other people have probably solved it. What are the corner pieces that I need to start with?
Absolutely. And then I suppose going more into specifics as far as performing in sales, right? Obviously, to do what you've done in the 4.5 year stint, it's hard to replicate that for the average person. So for that person who's maybe performing, whether a setter or a closer, right? They're at the level that they're not necessarily happy with. They want to dive into their role and obviously perform at a higher level. What were some of the levers that you pulled to help you optimize your performance? Because I'm assuming you wasn't perfect at the beginning, right? You obviously
Oh,
had to make a lot of mistakes and grow. So yeah.
absolutely. It's, in a weird way, it was, the more I gravitated away from sales training, the better I got. And that's
I can say that for
counterintuitive.
myself as well, and it's weird. It doesn't feel right compared to
No,
marketing, right? But that's a
it
good point.
doesn't. But we've just been told that the way to improve in sales is call reviews, role plays, buy sales training. And we've just kind of blindly accepted it. And it's great for a level of competence and confidence, which play a factor. But what I realized the limitations being is, if I get good at one set of, like, a process, right? A methodology. Let's say I buy a sales training and I get good at it. That's going to have an impact, no doubt. Right? Then what happens, and the path that we're told based on marketing, is either buy another sales training and learn that, or get better at that sales training. And what I started looking at is my own data and realized that, okay, every methodology is built for predictability. Right? Like, if you're a prospect, the process or the script that I've been given is not built for Taylor O'Hare. Right? There's no individual. If you say, hey, I want to join remote sales so I can save up for a sailboat, there's no process that's going to be like, if Taylor says sailboat, you say this. Right? So there's always going to be a gap. So what is a methodology built for? It's built for predictability, meaning, hey, if we go through this process, there's going to be enough people that resonate with it. It's going to work enough of the time to get predictable results. That might be your 20, 30, 40% close rate, right? So then getting better at that process, it has its limitations. So what I realize is, okay, I have a foundation, I'm competent in sales, but there's gaps. There's gaps in the process that the business owner has built. There's gaps in the methodologies that I've learned. So my thought process was, let's start tracking where these gaps are. And how I tracked it was realizing, okay, these people, this script is not built for these people. Like most scripts, because they have to have a broader range, most scripts are very focused on pain problem, and they take someone through the whole buying process. And it's introductory, right? It's typically built for low sophistication and low awareness. But what
Yeah.
happens when you get someone that's high awareness and high sophistication? Typically, that's where it falls short. It's built for a certain personality. What happens when you get A-type personality or analytical personality? All of a sudden, those like consequence, high emotion questions are trash. Right? And so a mentor once told me that there's only two people that can adjust in communication, you or the receiver. And so what happens is, a lot of salespeople think that the prospect is going to adjust to them. They force them through their
Mhm.
process. What I realized was, I have more control if I learn how to adjust to their buying process than expecting them to adjust to my sales process. And that was the early, I didn't know what it was called, but that's the early markings of situational selling. Was, okay, I have a process that works some of the time with some of the people. Where are the gaps, and how can I identify and make the adjustments early on?
Okay. And obviously, I'm not here to try and reveal all your secrets of the situational selling.
But
We're
now,
taking bits and pieces from everyone. But as far as going to like, bare bones, a bit of the basics to help people be more flexible in communication, because I'm telling setters this all the time. Yes, I've provided you with a guided script, but that's not everything, right?
no.
Flexibility and understanding decision making is so important. So, like for you, what do you think helps you to kind of adapt towards more situational selling? I know you mentioned the traffic light method that was quite helpful. I know for me when I was doing a bit of closing. But yeah, like talk through some of the basics to help people get into that a bit more.
Yeah. So I think the foundation is understanding who your process is built for. To me, we're so told everything's so tactical, and we get the what and the how. What to say, how to say it. And what I think people should be able to do is understand the process from a level of why. Why am I opening this way? Why am I framing the call? Why are these the first questions? What do I want as an answer? What are the possible answers here? Why are those things important? So, the second thing for me is understanding where the rewards on the call are. There is no rewards. You will not see any impact on your bank account for following the perfect process. No one has ever said, "Wow, your process is amazing. Your close rate is shit. Your set to close is horrible. Your no-show rate is horrible, but man, do you ever follow a process well?" Like, understanding what the process is built for. Why do we ask questions? To draw out information. What information? The information relevant, the evidence to decide whether this is a yes or a no. What is the optimal answer? And so the foundation for me was moving from my job is to sell everybody and everybody, the buy or die mentality, to my job is to facilitate the best decision possible. Now, for me, I have to uncover that. If I assume that the best answer is yes, then that's where objections come from. They're objecting to your position. But if I go in neutral, and at the same time, I'm uncovering when the prospect is uncovering what is the optimal answer, now we're in alignment. Because if I go in and my job is to get them to say yes, then anything that's not a yes is an opposition. I don't want any opposition. So what I'm doing is I'm aligning where the prospect can't oppose. So if I said, "Hey, my job is to help you make the best decision possible," what prospect on the planet is going to be like, "Well, I'm here to make a horrible decision." Right? There's no opposition, right? So understanding what the process is built for and what my job is intentionally, and then like you talked about, kind of the traffic lights. This is where I see a lot of salespeople screw up. What they do is they get to a certain level, and let's say they're closing at an 18% close rate, not really attractive, right? So what they do is like, okay, that's not working. So they scrap everything, and then they try something new. They buy a new sales training, and then they try that, and it's 22. And it's like, okay, it's better, but it's still not where I want to be. Let's scrap that. Let's buy a third training. It doesn't make any sense. Right. So you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in that if I look and someone has an 18% close rate, what I see is this process is working 18% of the time. How can we optimize that for those types of people? Let's look for clues there. Those are my greens, right? People who should buy, who could buy, who don't buy. Right. And then I have my reds. And this is what trips up a lot of salespeople. Reds are good. These are the people who shouldn't buy, who couldn't buy, who don't buy. That's an optimal decision. Getting the nose to the nose is part of the game. So when someone comes and says, "Oh, I'm having a slump, I haven't closed in 10 calls," the first thing I ask them was, "Well, how many people should have bought? How many people could have bought?" And if they say, "Oh, well, I haven't talked to anybody who could have bought or should have bought," then you're not in a slump. You've gotten 10 people to the optimal decision, right? So if we have the people who should buy, who could buy, who don't buy, are greens, and we have the people who shouldn't buy, who couldn't buy, who don't buy, are reds, what are we left with? This is the opportunity to expand your ability to influence. These are your yellows. So these are people who should buy, who could buy, for some reason don't buy. To me, what I looked at is obviously my approach is suboptimal for these people. something I'm doing, something that I'm ill for is missing the mark. And so what I started doing was tracking and looking at the awareness level, looking at the sophistication level, looking at the demographics, and figuring out where the gaps were. So then I still keep my 18% close rate for the people who should and could buy, right? But now I'm adding the adjustment to the yellows. And those adjustments allow me to expand that circle of influence and close more deals without sacrificing the deals I'm already closing.
There we go. I don't think you need to get another sales training again. Just listen to this, right? So yeah, this deserves at least a K views. Awesome. So I'm just thinking of where to transition as far as, because yes, that's like the sales, that's the specifics, that's the principles. I obviously what you're really well known for and what you've helped me with the most and still help me with now is obviously the mindset piece. Without some of the mental work that I've done through your support, I know I'd probably still be in a setter role, really begging to make sure I can keep my job, right? To always being fearful of getting fired, of not focusing on what I want, but I always used to focus on what I didn't want.
Right.
That's obviously got a bit better now, but I
Much
guess
better.
yeah, hell of a lot. So like as far as that the mindset, what we're seeing from people, in the space, obviously things have changed so much in the last 4 years. As far as like mentally getting ahead, being in those top percentile of people who do well in the space, like what do you see like as how to mentally get ahead in these times, I guess.
Right.
Quite a big question, right? But it's
Well,
important.
I think, and that's what I love about what you're doing now is because there was that adversity. Someone who comes in and has smooth sailing is not inspiring to people. And so I love that you had kind of very common struggles and you're in the position you are now. That's true inspiration. And so I'll start with one of the things that I've seen that a lot of students struggle with and that you struggle with in the beginning was that playing defense. Right. So you're a bit of a football fan, I'm guessing.
Oh, obsessed, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So imagine the team strategy was, well, if we get scored on, we lose. So why don't we put everybody in a line, right, on the goalpost, right? Why don't we just stack as many people in front of the net as possible?
No
That
one's
way it's
tried it,
very
so we'll see how it
difficult.
goes.
Right. It's very difficult to be, it's more difficult to be scored on, right? But understanding that the game is not played to not lose, right? There is no reward for not losing, right? It's I want to win. I want to find a way to win. Right. And so we see this kind of at two sections, which is really important. There is the people that are afraid to fail at the very beginning. And so what they're trying to do is navigate without getting punched in the face, right? They're trying to go 12 rounds without ever getting hit, but they're never throwing any punches or they're not throwing enough punches, right? So they're trying to avoid rejection. They're trying to avoid mistakes. They're trying to avoid fuck ups and failures, right? And they don't make any progress. In turn, they actually end up fucking up, right? So there's that aspect. And then there's another one that's super interesting, which is when I get students to a certain goal. Let's say someone comes to me and says, "Hey, JD, I want to get to 8K or 10K a month." Right? We get them there and then everything changes. Why? Because they get in that mode of like, okay, everything's perfect. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. And
Mm.
all their brain, their subconscious hears is fuck it up, fuck it up, fuck it up. Right. And so I think the idea of like, yes, there's certain aspects where you have to gather yourself. You have to make sure that you're not taking unnecessary risks. But what I've seen is the people who excel are the ones who make mistakes faster. I believe that the reason I was able to go through this is I was really good at messing up. I'm really good at making mistakes. What I'm better at is not making the same mistake, and I'm really good at observing and learning from it. So instead of trying to go undefeated through this industry, it's learning from your losses and moving forward. So I think that's one aspect is you have to play to win. I think the other aspect is that self-awareness and being able to separate emotion from problem solving. And so I give everybody a very simple exercise is as I'm feeling something, so let's say you just got fired, right? Which is a rite of passage in this industry. If you haven't been fired, you're on the other side. Like I've been fired many
Congratulations.
times.
You're
Yeah,
fired. Yeah, 100%.
exactly. So what happens is we associate the emotion and it gets jumbled up in the situation. So for example, like, oh, I'm discouraged because I got fired. What I realized is if we split that down, so what I would recommend is take a piece of paper, write down the middle. On the left side, you put the emotion. I'm discouraged. On the right side, you put the situation. I'm jobless. I got fired, broke up. It seems simple, but what that allowed me to do is realize that I'm solving for two problems. I can't solve I'm discouraged because I got fired. My brain is like, well, what do I do? Right. And usually it just kind of spins its tires. But if I say I'm discouraged, okay, what do I want to feel? Motivated, inspired, determined, resilient. Okay, there's a pathway there. I've felt those things before. What makes me feel that way? Now I'm jobless. Okay, what is the situation here? How can what do I want? How do I build it? Right now I can solve for X. But trying to take the discouragement into solving, it's going to be an emotional problem solve. So I think emotional regulation, self-awareness, and the ability to problem solve, again, going back to the idea of I will not be faced with a challenge that I can't overcome. So if this is a level 4 problem, I need to be a level 5 or higher problem solver. So I think those are some of the building blocks as far as mindset goes. And I think the other thing that is important is the acceptance that all the qualities that we admire in others, in ourselves, come from the things that we're trying to avoid. So we can all agree that courageousness, right? We just love it. As a society, we look up to those courageous people. They're our heroes, right? But where is courage without fear? It's non-existent. You can't have courage without fear. So it's necessary, right? How can we love resilience, but we don't like the struggle or the setbacks or the failures? And it's like, well, you can't have resilience without the adversity. You can't have integrity without the temptation. So every quality that we desire, that we want to be known and develop in ourselves, comes from the things that we're trying to avoid. So if you avoid that, it's like, I want to put on muscle, but I'm avoiding the resistance in the gym. Right? So understanding that what you go through is what's going to shape you. And so accepting that journey and understand that you are being challenged, you're not being punished.
Yeah, that's major. Major. I was just thinking back to what you said about playing not to lose as well. It reminds me, Pep Guardiola, you may know, some of you that are watching this, is a Man City manager. He's won like multiple titles, and he said something in a press conference where if any of the teams in this league focus on not on playing not to lose, they're never going to win the league. And he was always saying playing to win, playing to win. If you guys love football, you're going to understand that very well. But that's so, so true. Like playing to win, and obviously all of the rest of the points. Um, and yeah, I think it's a good bomb to drop it off there. I think as far as obviously how people can find you, there's obviously the YouTube channel, which is the Undeniable Closer, I believe, on YouTube. If you search that up,
I think at remote sales is
at Remote
a
Sales.
little,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
But you can
awesome.
search undeniable closer, I'll pop up as well.
For sure. Okay, so make sure to go to the YouTube channel. Obviously we've got the Instagram page as well. I think that might be the Undeniable Closer as
Yeah, that's
well.
the one.
Yeah, that's the one. So definitely go to the Instagram page as well. I'll drop obviously all of the links. JD's Facebook as well. There's the Undeniable Remote Sales Job Board, Undeniable Remote Sales Community. There's, I believe, probably collectively over 20,000 members in there. There's probably a lot more. I've probably gone way
No,
beyond
around
that.
20,000. That's it.
Around 20,000. So there's lots of stuff there. I'll leave all the links to all of those. And JD, is there anything you want to leave anybody with to help them, as a result of listening to this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is understanding that there's a model, there's a path for your success. You are not a pioneer. People who have had it worse than you, whatever your struggle, whatever your excuse, whatever your location, your accent, whatever it is, your lack of experience, the puzzle's already been solved. So you can go about it and you can question yourself and you can individualize your problems, or you can start looking and saying, this has been solved before, why not me? What do I have to do? How can I bridge that gap? I believe that modeling is the biggest cheat code. You and I both know that there is no easy path. There is no shortcuts. There is
No.
no convenience factor. Anybody that outsources convenience usually takes the longest path and pays the most. But I would say if there was one shortcut, hypothetically, it would be modeling. It would be getting outside of your own head and looking and seeing if you can identify the difference between those who are struggling in this industry, because there's a blueprint for struggle, the same way there's a blueprint for success. And so you have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself, is the effort that I put in today, is that in alignment with what I think these 6 and 7 figure earners in this industry put in? Who worked harder today? Right? Because you have control of your work ethic. So as someone that has more experience and skill and strategy and all the advantages and outworking you, you're screwed. Right. And then looking at, does my calendar look like a 6-figure calendar? Someone who has 6 figures coming in, would it look the same? Right? Is my determination the same level? Right? Is my strategy the same level? Am I doing what people have consistently struggled before me are doing? And what I've found is it's all predictable. Someone tells me they're struggling to get a job. I can tell them, even without knowing a thing, I can tell them exactly what they're doing. Someone who's doing really well in this industry, I can predict exactly what they're doing. So get out of the individual mind, get out of your own bullshit, and look around, become observant. There is a path for your success, no matter where you're at now. You need to get on that path and you need to stay on that path.
100%. Perfect. There we go. So appreciate it, guys. If there's any takeaways, obviously there's plenty. So please do comment them. Obviously, like, share it, because we need to hear kind of the realities of the space, right? Everything has changed and changed so much recently. So, make sure to share the video, of course. And of course, we'll be on to episode 21. I appreciate you, JD. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Absolutely, brother. Take care. Proud of you, man.
Later, guys. Cheers. See you later.